I've had such a hard time with my father-in-law. He's totally useless. That's why on days when sales are down, I punish him by not giving him dinner. My sister-in-law claimed that she made my father work from dawn to dusk, and even went without food some days. Seeing all this, my brother just grinned foolishly. I'll take our father in. I'm glad. Finally, I'm getting rid of the useless one. Now I'll be able to breathe easily. And so, our new life of living with my father as a family began. But our father my brothers drove out was actually a blessing in disguise. My name is Sarah. I'm a 33-year-old housewife with a part-time job living with my husband and our daughter, who's in kindergarten. My husband recently took over the ramen noodle shop that his father was running. From a young age, he used to watch his father work with sparkling eyes. My father-in-law would start preparing the ramen noodle early in the morning, making steaming hot ramen noodle while sweating profusely. My husband has always admired his father, he said.
The water sparkles around my dad as he shakes the boiled noodles. At that moment, it's like he's dancing with the goddess of ramen noodle.
When I heard my husband say that, I started to wonder if he was a bit off, to the point where I doubted him. But such thoughts were dispelled as soon as I tasted my father-in-law's ramen noodle after we started dating. I too saw it, my father-in-law dancing with the goddess of ramen noodle. We, who got married in our mid-20s, were a slightly awkward couple. A few years later, we were blessed with a daughter. Looking back, those were the happiest times. Sadly, my father-in-law fell ill soon after our daughter was born, and he never returned. Since my mother-in-law had already passed away too, my husband's sadness must have been immense. My husband tried to close down his father's shop, but he was persuaded not to by the staff and regular customers.
You're the only one who can take over the old man's place. Haven't you trained as his apprentice for over 10 years?
It's heartbreaking to think we can't taste that flavors anymore. Only you can do it. Inspired by those words, my husband made up his mind.
Keep an eye on me from the other world, Dad.
Saying this, he stood up. However, things did not go smoothly from the start, and every day was a struggle. Even if he could reproduce the same flavor, customers inevitably compared him with his predecessor. In other words, what the customers wanted was a taste surpassing his father's. However, the number of customers did not increase, as we hoped, and my husband spent each day in distress. During this time, my mother passed away. I was worried about my father, who was grieving after losing his wife. But living an hour away by car, I could not visit him frequently. Just when I was thinking of what could be done, my brother surprisingly offered to live with him. While I was happy, I had mixed feelings. My brother has always been somewhat irresponsible. He's inspired by Jimmy Fallon, which only adds to my worry. Additionally, there's another cause for concern. That is my sister-in-law, my brother's wife, Elizabeth. What? Your husband dropped out of middle school? That's just unbelievable. Upon meeting us, my sister-in-law blurted out these words. You're working part-time? If you can't be a full-time housewife, aren't you a loser as a woman? She casually says things like this. Moreover, my brother and his wife did not attend my mother's funeral. Apparently, my brother, who had quit his job to start a coffee shop, said he didn't have time. When I asked him when he studied coffee shop management,
I've always wanted to try it. I had fun ditching work and going to coffee shops, so I thought, why not start my own?
At my brother's words, I felt like I was about to faint. Although my brother had taken in my father, it seems that he's even making our father work in the shop. Of course, he's not paying him any salary. I thought his wife should be helping first. When I asked what my sister-in-law was doing, a man's worth is measured by how well he provides for his wife, right? That's why I'm not working. So that's what she says. Aye, huh. Would it kill her to put a am in there? This lazy woman. I cannot understand why my brother supports such a woman. One day our family decided to visit our parents' house for the first time in a while. Although we had informed my brother in advance, only my sister-in-law was at the house when we arrived. Hello, it's been a while, Elizabeth. Oh yeah. Well, I'm going to watch TV, so make yourself at home. She was the same as always. Elizabeth, where is my brother? He decided to open the store at the last minute today. Apparently, we're in a sales pinch this month. Aha, I see. I am stunned by so much. But it's easier and better for me when he's not around. I was surprised that my brother had suddenly decided to open the shop, but I was even more shocked by my sister-in-law's attitude. Even if she thought so, I was surprised that she could say such a thing in front of her husband's sister. While being astounded by my sister-in-law's consistent attitude, I headed for the living room. However, there was nobody there. I can't find my father, so I decided to go to his room. I knock, but there's no answer. Feeling uneasy, I opened the door and said, What's going on? I was at a loss for words. After all, the room that once belonged to my father was no longer his. Where his room used to be was now a space entirely covered in a sickly pink color. Yes, it was completely pink. It was so bright that my eyes started to hurt just from looking at it. Hey, Elizabeth! Something's wrong with my father's room. At that moment, I even suspected that my father had dementia. That's why I hurriedly asked my sister-in-law who was in the living room. Meanwhile, my sister-in-law was lounging on the couch, watching TV, and without any hint of panic, "Oh, that? It's my room, so it's fine." The woman who speaks without using my said so carelessly. But wasn't that room my father's study? Even if there were books, you can't eat them, right? They were just a waste, so I got rid of them. Oh, what do you mean, you got rid of them? So, I turned it into my room. It's cute with pink, don't you think? I'll keep my thoughts about that pink room to myself, but I can't stay quiet about how she's treating my father. But Elizabeth, don't you have a room with my brother? Oh yeah, the biggest room. But I wanted my own room. Then there's the room I used to use, right? Oh, that one? I turned it into a storage room. A storage room? I turned it into a collection room for stuff I've been collecting since I was single. What did she just say? When I went to the room I used to use, once again it was turned into an entirely pink room. How much does she love pink? Wow, this room is all pink. The one who said that in surprise was my daughter Lisa, who had come to peek into the room with me. Many girls like pink, but even my daughter seemed to find this pink room dazzling. It was that overwhelming. The stack of cardboard boxes seemed to reach the ceiling. The entire room was filled with pink goods that didn't fit. I wonder if the bottom of the room falls out. But what I'm worried about now is not the pink room. I quickly returned to the living room and asked my sister-in-law, who was hugging a pink cushion. So, where did you make my father's room? My room and my father's study have become pink rooms, and my brother and his wife are in the big room. Excluding the living kitchen, there were only 3 rooms in this house. Previously, these 3 rooms were divided between my parents, my brother, and me. Since my brother left home, that room had become my father's study. So, where is my father sleeping now? I had assumed that my father made the study his room. To my surprise, my sister-in-law said, "He's sleeping on this sofa, you know." She says so, dropping crumbs of the cookie she was eating onto the sofa. What? As I was lost for words at the shocking truth, the entrance suddenly became noisy. And when I went to check the entrance, there was my father with a pale face, barely standing with the help of my brother. What on earth happened to Dad? While supporting my father, who was about to collapse, I asked my brother. Then my brother shrugged his shoulders and said,
He suddenly collapsed while helping out at the shop.
As if it were not a big deal, he says so. Did he collapse? Did he go to the hospital?
That's a hassle, so no, he didn't.
What? Why didn't he go?
Hospitals are a waste of time. They just cost money. Besides, if you've got time, sis, you could help out at the shop too.
What? There's no way I'm helping. should first make your wife work." Screaming in rage, I immediately took my father to the hospital. And after returning home, I confronted my brother and his wife. "How much have you been making Dad work?" The hospital said he collapsed from overwork. Yes, it turned out my father had collapsed due to overwork. Now he's lying on the sofa. I felt sorry for him, wondering if he really only had the sofa to sleep on. With my face red with anger, my brother and his wife kept smiling.
Well, getting up at 3 a.m. for opening preparations, then customer service, washing dishes, and cleaning during opening hours, and closing work from 8 p.m. Not a big deal, right?
Not a big deal? Are you a demon? Even prisoners get breaks. My anger won't subside at the unimaginable treatment, and yet my brother seems to have no understanding of why I'm angry.
We're living together, so it's natural to expect him to work this much, right?
What? I was at a loss for words, but my sister-in-law nodded and said this. Exactly. We're having a hard time with our father-in-law. He's totally useless. So, on days when our sales are down, we punish him by skipping meals. But he never reflects on it. Oh, and of course, he's skipping today too. What? Oh, wait, what did she just say? My father is useless? What does she mean by punishment? Skipping meals? This is unbelievable. My father, who has become a wreck both physically and mentally. I was so outraged by my brother and his wife's outrageous treatment of my father that I couldn't even speak. Well, sister-in-law, that's the case, so please, take your father with you. What? Then a big Boston bag was placed in front of me, and I was puzzled by my sister-in-law's incomprehensible words. What's this? These are all of your father-in-law's belongings. That's what. Wait, this is all of it? Yes, that's right. No, that doesn't make sense no matter how you look at it. There's no way my father's belongings, who has been living here for a long time, could fit into one Boston bag. All my brother did was smirk and nod at me surprised. Is this really all there is? So, we're kicking out the useless one. Bye-bye. Excuse me? I let out a dumbfounded voice without thinking. And then my brother also nodded and said this.
Yeah, he's useless, so living together any longer would just be a nuisance. So sis, you're gonna take him in, right?
What? At that moment, when I was about to explode at my brother and his wife's ridiculous attitude, a bright voice echoed in the room. Yay! Grandpa is coming to our house! My daughter was being entertained by my husband, but it seemed she had been listening to the conversation. And so, I asked my daughter, still confused, would you be happy to live with Grandpa? Yes, I would be happy. She probably doesn't understand the full circumstances, but I felt encouraged by my daughter's words. And then I looked at my husband holding our daughter. You. Surely my husband understood what I was thinking. He quietly nodded and,
Yes, of course. It's fine. Let's live together with your father.
Thank you so much. Our family is by no means wealthy. His ramen noodle shop isn't doing very well, and while I do work part-time, it's not like I make much money. Certainly, our life will probably get harder than it is now. But I can't not do it. I can't just leave my father like this. Dad, I gently called out to my father, who was lying down. Let's go home and live with us. When I said that, my father opened his eyes slightly and with a trembling voice.
Sarah, thank you.
He responded. Great! Now we won't have the useless one around. It'll be a relief. Even at the end, my sister-in-law says such words. With my sister-in-law's harsh words behind me, I brought my father home. It was unbearably frustrating. Of course, having our family home taken away was terrible, but I was also disgusted with myself for trusting my brother like that. I'm really sorry I didn't notice that my brother had become like this. While my brother was always rather carefree, he used to be better. He, of course, had a rebellious phase, but I never thought he could be such a terrible person. As I apologized, my father shook his head with a frail smile.
I pushed myself too hard to help my son, and it's our responsibility as parents that he turned out this way. So you shouldn't be burdening yourself.
His kind words makes me want to cry. Holding back tears, I said to him, "You don't have to work anymore. Please, just rest. We don't have much to spare, so I can't provide you with luxury, but it'll be tough to increase my part-time shifts while caring for my young daughter. But once she enters elementary school, I should be able to increase my shifts. Maybe I could even aim for full-time employment. There must be more that I can do for my father and my family. Dad, I'm going to do my best."
Sarah, thank you.
Seeing my determination and clenched fist, my father smiled at me warmly. From then on, peaceful days passed by. He seemed to be able to rest and regained his previous energy. Lately, he's been spending a lot of time with my daughter. Living with her beloved grandfather seems to make my daughter happy too. Indeed, life is tough, but I have never regretted welcoming my father into our home. My father tried to contribute his pension to our household expenses, but I refused. After all, it seems he has hardly any savings left. That was due to him being exploited for a considerable amount of money as living expenses by my brother and his wife. It's an absurd story. The word useless that my brother and his wife had used probably meant that he was of no use to them now that he was penniless. Their way of thinking is truly ridiculous. After a while, our family lived peacefully. However, a change came to my husband. Or, to be precise, to my husband's ramen noodle shop.
Recently, it seems we're getting a lot of customers.
One day, my husband muttered that. "That's good, isn't it?"
Yeah, I mean it is, but...
My husband said that, tilting his head, seeming somewhat unsure. "It's good, isn't it? It's booming."
Sure, I think the taste has improved as I've been researching every day. But somehow I feel it's not just about the taste.
What do you mean?
I don't know either.
If my husband doesn't know, there's no way I, who has nothing to do with the shop, would know. What could it be? We finished our conversation and then I said to my father, "I have a part-time job from morning tomorrow, so Dad, could you have lunch at the shop?"
Sure, no problem.
My father has fully recovered, and his appetite seems to have returned as well. So when I can't prepare lunch, he often eats at my husband's shop. My father seems to like the original flavor, but my husband seems to be careful not to make it too greasy considering my father's health. Moreover, my father actually pays for his meals, although my husband always refused.
You're making this with pride, right? Then you should take the payment without mixing business and personal matters.
My father stubbornly insisted on it, so now it seems my husband has started accepting the payment. And the next day, when I had just finished putting my daughter to bed, my husband came home. And the moment he entered the entrance,
I figured it out!
He shouted out. "What did you figure out?"
The reason why the shop is booming.
"What was it?"
Actually, that person did this and that, and then this happened, and then that happened.
No, speak properly.
You should say that to yourself.
Let's calm down for now. After chugging down a glass of cold tea, my husband finally calmed down. He sat on the sofa and began to talk about what happened today.
Today, in the afternoon, when I had some free time, your father came in.
And then?
As soon as your dad came in, a crowd of people gathered around him.
Huh? Why?
Actually, your father is like a god of fortune.
What? What on earth is he starting to say? As far as I can see, my father is just a regular old man. But my husband continues his story.
According to my regular customers, apparently life consultations with your father have become quite popular.
Life consultations?
Your father has been answering my customers' life questions. I was too busy with preparation and cooking to notice.
What the heck? I decided to hear more about it. Over time, my father has become familiar with many of the shop's regulars. With his substantial way of speaking and his background as a former teacher, he ended up listening to a salaryman's grumbling stories.
That man, after receiving advice from your father while eating ramen, was promoted.
Really? No way!
A freelance man who overheard that story apparently consulted with your father while eating sweet and sour pork.
Mm-hmm.
Then he got a job at the company he was hoping for and now works there as a full-time employee.
You can't be serious.
There was also a female customer who consulted with your father about her cheating boyfriend while eating fried rice and dumplings.
You don't mean that he stopped cheating, do you?
Not exactly, but now she's the wife of an Arabian oil tycoon.
That's obviously a lie. In reality, she apparently ended up with a new boyfriend.
So, it seems that an urban legend has been created that if you consult with your father while eating our menu, your life will turn around.
What is he talking about? I looked at my husband with a skeptical eye. Just then, my father came out of the bath, so I asked him this. Dad, is it true that you've been giving advice to people at the shop?
Ah, yes. Maybe because of my age, it seems people find me easy to talk to. I wonder why.
What kind of advice did you give today?
I think it was a father who was troubled by his shut-in son, and a college student who had failed his course and decided to repeat a school year.
So, it's true after all. It seems that it is true that he's taking consultations. But those seem like problems my father couldn't possibly solve. With that, the day ended with more questions than answers. But a few days later,
the results of the urban legend verification are out.
My husband said this with a solemn expression. Well then, let's hear about this urban legend. So, what happened?
You know the father of the shut-in son that your father counseled the other day?
Yes, and?
That father came to report in tears that his son had come out and started working a part-time job.
What? Really?
He said he had a talk with his son just as your father advised.
I see.
And about the college student who was supposed to repeat a year.
He must have decided to cheer up and do his best, right? He must have accepted that he's repeating a year.
Turns out he's actually going to advance to the next year.
No way, really?
Apparently, he failed a course by a strict professor, but after going to the professor's office several times and having a heated discussion, his report was accepted.
Can such a causal thing really happen?
Isn't that just how university reports go? I wouldn't know because I only finished junior high school.
Well, it might depend on the professor. And so, my father's reputation kept rising. By the way,
there were guys who didn't order anything when they came to consult.
Some people really have some nerve. Just going into a ramen noodle shop, not eating anything, and only asking for advice shows quite a strong mentality.
Your father doesn't give much advice to such guys, so their situations get even worse.
Eh? That means...
Yes, your father is amazing.
No, that's not what I mean.
Huh? What is it?
The increase in customers at the shop isn't because your cooking got better, right?
What? You're really gonna say that?
My husband was truly disheartened by the truth that I had just thrown at him. But actually, the fact that the customers don't just order the cheapest dishes or drinks means the food isn't bad, right? It seems everyone is placing proper orders, so it must be somewhat tasty. Somewhat. Right? And so, my husband's shop started to thrive thanks to this unexpected turn of events. Of course, my father doesn't go there every day, but even when he's not there, there are always customers. That must mean the food is actually good. Good job, honey. That's how things have been going smoothly in our home. However, a storm tends to come when you least expect it. This time, it was about my brother and his wife. One day, when I happened to have a day off from my part-time job, I went to my husband's shop with my father. Despite before opening hours, suddenly the door opened and...
Give me back my father.
My brother came in, shouting. Looking closer, I saw that he and his wife had serious expressions. My brother, with a strong posture, briskly approached me and said,
My shop was struggling even when our father was helping. But yours is thriving thanks to father's life counseling, right? I saw it on the internet. What's with this disparity? My shop is on the brink of closing down.
So he claimed. You were the one who dumped all the work on our father, weren't you? With that much workload, there's no way he'd have time for life counseling.
Ugh.
Seeing my brother stammer like that, I'm sure I hit a nerve. Then my sister-in-law stepped forward. All he has to do is sit and counsel, so he doesn't have to help out like before. We've come all the way to fetch him, so let's go back. I'm sure my father-in-law wants to live at his own house, doesn't he? What a selfish demand. She quickly changed her tune. They were the ones who kicked my father out. There's no way we're handing father over to this wicked couple. As I was about to retort, my father stopped me. He held out his hand in front of me, indicating for me to stop. Then he stood in front of my silent brother and his wife and quietly said,
Today, the two of you came to consult me because your shop is going to go under if things stay as they are, right? Exactly. So if you could counsel at my shop, just to clarify, those who come to me for advice are fundamentally customers who come here to eat. Eh? But your cafe, it's not good at all. What? That's not true. No, it is true. Firstly, have you ever learned how to make coffee somewhere? I mean, I learned from the internet and it's been fine so far. I thought so. Even the desserts like cake are inedible, right? It's no wonder that your sales are down and you're on the verge of going under when you can only serve such things. No, but...
Having received my father's sharp criticism, my brother was at a loss for words. He tried to argue back, but it seemed hopeless.
Don't take your work lightly. Excuse me? Your shop doesn't get customers because it's unpalatable. Conversations happen because customers come to the shop seeking delicious food. Your casual attitude is probably why customers aren't coming. But that's...
He was hit right on the nose. My brother was at a loss for words.
I can't possibly counsel anyone at a shop that gets no customers. I won't give any slack to you, spoiled brats. How about starting over and learning from scratch?
Facing my brother and his wife, who couldn't say anything back, my father reiterated.
Don't take your work lightly,
he shouted. Then, overwhelmed by my father's momentum, my brother and his wife left. In other words, they had come to my husband's shop, talked with my father, and left without eating anything. So that means... Exactly. The situation had worsened because they sought advice without consuming anything. Soon after, my brother's shop went out of business. He had debt from starting the shop, and instead of paying it back, it increased to an amount he couldn't pay off. To my brother, my father gave his house as a gift before death, as a final severance. But even selling the house wouldn't cover the debt. Now the couple live in a shabby apartment and seem to be forced into an impoverished life. It seems that my sister-in-law had debts as well. These two debt-ridden people are likely having a hard time. On the other hand, our family is leading a smooth-sailing life. My husband's shop is thriving even more, and I have quit my part-time job to help out at the shop. It's not exactly easy, but being able to work with my husband brings me happiness. When we are busy, my still energetic father helps take care of our daughter, which is a big help. Recently, my father hasn't been doing much life counseling, but the fact that customers never stop coming means, surely, my husband's hard work has paid off, and I'm happy about it. And today, my husband is again making a snapping sound as he shakes the boiled noodles. At that moment, the water sparkles as it dances upwards, and my husband was dancing with the goddess of ramen noodle.